welcome back to Rethink Healthcare. I'm Tanya Stendy.
Paul Montenegro.
And today we're going to, following along the theme of system controls or system, however we want to describe it, we are going to talk about a specific program from Michigan called the Grow Your Own Program for Teachers. And would you like to elaborate a little?
Sure. So just, they're not growing trees, they're growing teachers.
I said teachers.
Yes, I know. But when you tell me something, hey, what are you growing? You're like planting something, But the analogy is, you take a seedling and you give it nutrients, water, and then it'll crop up, right? Yeah. Same thing with what Michigan did with their teacher program, because there's a teacher shortage. So what they did was they looked into how do we then propagate
more
teachers by looking within their own system.
Yeah.
Who is already in this education environment, right? Maybe not a teacher yet, but somebody in the school system who perhaps was more like a teacher's aide, or somebody within that system, and say, hey, if you're interested, we will help you get through the certification process and the education processes to become a certified teacher.
Yeah.
So this, as we talked about before, our whole season is really geared about system controls, and this, in essence, is a system, meaning the state of Michigan.
Yeah.
Putting together a system to increase their numbers of teachers.
Yeah.
Now, how does that fall into healthcare? We've talked about this before. I think in one of our prior shows about having a system within healthcare. For example, we could take our nurses' aid, propagate them through the system.
Yeah.
Right? Now, here's the difference, though. What Michigan did was they actually have funding from the government, and they actually put a law into it, right? Was there a law that they were?
Yeah.
There's a Public Act 103 of 2023. I don't really know what that means, but there is a law or an act that the government did for this specific program, and there's actually budgets and funding from the program to put that through. Now, as we talked about before in our prior episodes, probably like 2 seasons ago,
the latter.
Yeah, the lateral movements and vertical movements in healthcare.
Yeah.
There's no government or system control to promote that.
Yeah. So
when we rethink this, why couldn't we get a government or system control to help with this healthcare and shortages that we have in nursing?
Yeah.
Do that. That's the whole point why I brought this up. Like, hey, if we can do it for teachers, why couldn't we do it for nurses?
For sure. Yeah. So I think that, this is definitely, I can't believe it hasn't been thought of this, using this as a springboard even, in terms of nurses, because healthcare workers were so short with that at this point. Yeah. So there is an eligibility process, which I think could be implemented almost immediately with nursing. The eligibility process needed to be that you were employed by the school district already in some capacity. I don't know if you actually had to be a nurse's aide, but you needed to be directly employed by the local education agencies. Yeah. So in any case, it is a little bit easier for teachers because the Department of Education exists, obviously, and these schools are under the heading of the Department of Education, and then therefore it's just easy, I think, a little bit easier to implement, whereas nurses are hired by different companies all over the place.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I see your point there, because, for example, if you think of a teacher necessarily works for a school system, and the school system is run by a government agency, whether it be local, the town, but then that town is still a government agency that reports up to a higher state body, right? And then you have the federal, right?
Right.
I mean, I think that's the U.S. structure. I mean, for
Yeah.
our audiences, in other parts of the
Right.
world, there is similar structures. I mean, every place has towns.
Yeah.
Every place has the local governments within, and it just kind of goes up.
Yeah.
So, okay, I see your point there. While as our healthcare system, for the most part, at least in the United States, is privatized.
Yeah. Yeah.
So since it's privatized,
Makes it a little bit more.
yeah, okay, I get
That
you.
doesn't mean it can't be done. It just
Sure.
would have to be done
Well-
in a different way.
Yes, it really, the difference is the funding.
Yeah.
The funding source changes and the incentives change. So, okay, by way of example, like let's say some of the countries that I'm a bit more familiar with. For example, like Singapore has a public-private sector. I mean, we have it here too. I mean, I think every place has a public-private sector for the most part,
Yeah.
right? Even China has a public-private sector within their healthcare systems. So your public sectors
Yeah.
can certainly avail or put these programs in place.
Yes, in certain places. I mean, even though we have a public sector of in terms of healthcare delivery, like Medicaid, Medicare,
Yeah, but those are
places
insurers.
where I know,
Yeah.
but there's the places where the healthcare workers work are not government funded. Do you know what I mean?
but
I don't
they're-
know. There might be more nursing home areas.
No,
That's
no,
not
but
it.
look, like the VA. The VA,
Yeah, the VA, that's
is
true. Yeah.
fully
Yeah.
federally funded.
So it could be started there.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
so they so those are different systems that you could really look into, because then the government can push down
Yeah.
within their system.
Yeah.
So it is, I think, in the nursing field, this is very easy to implement. It's, I guess the education part though is a bit tougher, because you couldn't just say, okay, now you're an aide, now we want you to be a nurse. Well, it's still a pretty long
Yeah.
timeline process, but it's the same thing for the teachers.
Yeah.
The teachers, hey, you still need to go through your
Bachelor.
whatever,
Yeah.
whatever minimum requirements
Yeah.
for to be able to sit for the board exams. I mean,
Yeah.
teachers have exams as well to be able to practice. So now, okay, I like the analogy that you said there about the public-private and where the funding comes in. But within, right, if you're in the private sector,
Yeah.
why there's no difference in this wherein you could still propagate your own,
Yeah, for sure.
your own.
I'm not saying, I was just saying, I think it's a little easier in the education system because it's more, there's just more of it.
Well, no. I mean, it's because most of your schools are in the public sector.
Yeah.
In the public sector
Yeah.
side. Yeah. Okay, I get you. Now, the bottom line here is thinking of a pipeline. Pipeline to get from whatever youth into profession, right?
Yeah.
It's youth to profession pipeline. So however that pipeline may exist. Now, so this is kind of propagating your own by looking into your own cohort of people,
Yeah.
right? But how do you expand that even further out? Instead of your own cohort of people, why don't you look at sources? So you expand the source and then bring that source into your cohort and then propagate them through
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah.
No?
Agreed.
Yeah. I mean, so what are they trying to solve? They're trying to solve a shortage.
Yeah, exactly.
So
And we have that problem in nursing.
a very bad problem.
Yeah.
I mean, I just met, talked to my neighbor last night. Jen and I were walking, was there nightly, not nightly walk, but, walking and looking at the Christmas lights and whatnot, right? And we ran into our neighbor and just mentioned that, they were recently in the hospital, and they basically said that all the nurses were agency.
Yeah. I know.
The whole time they were there,
Yeah.
3-day stay, every single nurse that they worked with was agency, not even staff for
Wow.
the hospital. 3-day stay.
It's pretty scary.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Not that there's anything wrong with agency nurses, but there's something.
Well,
there's something.
it's staff stability.
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly.
It's staff stability. So now that's a private hospital, right? But if you think though, here in the United States, even if you're a private hospital, you still draw a lot of funds from public funds
Yeah.
through insurance. There's funds that are always paid into these systems. So I mean, we're not getting into insurances here because an insurance source versus a agency solely run by a government are two different things. But again, let's think of the pipeline, right? So if you're a private hospital, how do you pipeline your own? So trying to grow that, I mean, because you have to think of it as crops. When you plant a fruit-bearing tree, you're gonna have to wait for it to mature to bear you the fruit, right? So I think from a system perspective, government systems and even these private systems need to really start planting those. So even though, let's say, a path might take 2-3 years to get a nurse, if you have that path established and you plot them out, so let's say every 6 months, let's have a crop going every 6 months.
Yeah.
And then when you reach that timeline, you will then have a steady supply.
Yeah, of course. Right.
Of that.
Yeah.
I mean,
And you don't have to rotate pastures or land.
Well, I thought about it. And we went from crops now to
Well, if you're growing vegetables, like it sucks out all the nutrients, and you have to move your crops around on your land.
Well, how about this, right? Okay, so we're talking about growing your own, right? But then referring back to the pipeline, why don't you take your source globally? And I've said that before.
Yeah.
Why our teachers aren't able to take their source globally?
Yeah.
Do these teachers have a foreign teacher program where there's a visa coming in? I mean, for college professors, yes. But how about at the
I don't know.
high schools?
I'm not in that world.
Well, let's think of it like when we were going through those our schooling. So elementary school, high school. Did you have any teachers who maybe have come from a different country that were in some sort of visa
in school?
Yeah,
like elementary and high school? No.
Yeah, no. So they were all basically local. Local staff. But in college, it was very different.
Yeah, college is different.
College, like at the professor, but let's think about why. Here in the United States, there's a visa system for high-level professors, PhD levels. There's a visa system there to educate. So now you're able to draw.
Yeah.
But at this level, at the teacher level, at the baccalaureate teacher, I don't think there's a visa system to be able to draw.
No, I don't think so either.
But at the nursing level, there's specific visas that you could draw. So part of the system control here is visa allocations. At least in the United States, it's a visa allocation that's available. If you up that, I know that they did up that pool last year. Actually, I think this year they increased the pool, for that visa allocation. But again, I mean, there's always, I don't know the rhyme or reason who gets to decide to increase and decrease it, but there's always a steady, from nursing perspective.
Yeah.
There's always a steady pipeline available. Even within, right? Even here, right? For here in the United States, there are special visas if you're Canadian or Mexican because of the NAFTA agreement. There are special visas for those nurses to be able to easily come in to the country as in that profession. So they're kind of treating the field as trade as part of the NAFTA agreement. I mean, I don't see that for teachers though. So maybe that's why they have to get more creative in propagating, within their own system. But
in terms of helping to develop and promote more good nurses, I mean, this is a good way to do that.
Oh yes, yes. So from a rethinking part, I mean, the concepts that we talked about, even in the first season, is alive and well. It just is a matter of implementation.
Yeah.
Right? But then as part of implementation, there's also budgeting. And to your point, if the system is already a government system and they allocate the budget for it, they could make it happen.
Yeah.
If you're in a private system, unless the private sector allocates their budget for it and commits to it, and a lot of times, sometimes from a administration or a system perspective, they get to rather be a bit more short-sighted. It's like, well, the problem is a now. How do we fix this now?
But also it's just purely a money thing, because in the private sector, you are only worried about making money and increasing profits. And whereas, unfortunately, probably not necessarily a good thing, the government isn't worried about that.
No, because the government could print money.
Yes,
unfortunately. And the government, it's a municipal could not print money. A town could not print money. But they could go for funding.
Yeah, but that's all I'm saying, is that it requires a different thought process altogether from a financial standpoint.
Yes.
Yeah.
But extending your pipeline doesn't. Extending your pipeline out. So let's say for teachers, right? Shortage there. If you put these allocations for teachers to be able to be brought in, that doesn't cost the system.
No, but that's not
money.
what really we were.
No, it's not. But again, we're talking about pipeline. How do you fill? Right? What is the end goal of that? So it's just different approaches, which I personally think all those approaches should be done because it yields you. Right? Let's talk about a fruit.
Yeah.
It will yield you a fruit at different times. Yeah. So in essence, you have more crops, more availability.
Yeah.
In this case, hopefully you'll have more teachers. For our case, in our field, more nurses available. More nurses available, better care.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's a staffing game, We're not able to telehealth into the hospital.
Yeah.
And give somebody a medication through
Of
telehealth.
course.
Or assess somebody properly through a telehealth.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Yeah.
I like this. Maybe we should put our own program together.
Maybe we should.
You want to come up with one?
I don't know how we'll do that, but we can brainstorm.
Well, let's sit down with the leadership of whatever government.
Okay.
We'll put our own country together.
Right, exactly.
The land of Paul and Tanya.
Yeah, exactly.
In our world, we rethink and we do.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Thank you very much for tuning in, Tanya.
Thank you, Paul.
You have your Christmas attire. I don't have any Christmas attires, but I did match it with blue.
Yeah.
Anyway.
You did.
Good talking to you again. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.